around with the bank on me. Shoot them Gangnam style with the gang on them. Twist my fingers up and bang on them. Ah, yeah. Do I know what come my do? Do I know what come my do? Nobody know tomorrow. Choro, kajuru. And if a boy feel my too, make him lick red like a tomato. If I'm not dead, then him comatose.
Oh, hello, Tish. So lovely to have you in here. Having technological issues. Yeah. Yay!
And it finally works.
I'm so happy. You have no idea how I've become accustomed to these technological mishaps. So I'm really happy it's working.
I was panicking because this is the first time I've ever gone live, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Because I normally use the other tools. I don't use link thing in this one. I use LinkedIn Live. That's the one that I normally use all the time.
Ah, okay. And when you sent me the text, the screenshot that you sent me now on WhatsApp, just showing that you can see yourself. I was experiencing the same as well. When I connected, you were just like this black screen. And I was like, what is happening? Not today, please. Not for this conversation.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it was also giving me time. You know, everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer of that. So my son was also like in the background being busy. So I think that was part of it. It was giving me time to just like get rid of him, to say, keep yourself busy.
Like do something, go play with a toy or something like that.
Exactly. And he plays a lot with my phone. So I was like, listen, I need my phone for the next hour. You're going to have to keep yourself busy. I don't know what you're going to do. There's no TV that's going to go on because I will be busy. I need quiet time. So, yeah.
But that's good. That's good.
How are you?
I'm cold.
Oh, Europe. You are in Switzerland.
Like I woke up this morning and it was 0 degrees. Like zero, like nil, not done. And it's what? It's only the 15th? Yeah, 15th of November. So expectations are it's gonna get worse from here going forward. So it's gonna be a very interesting adjustment on my side.
Listen, I take my hat off to you, you know. When did you leave? About 2 months ago?
Yeah, 2 months ago. So I've been here for 2 months now. And I think every day I just, like there's a lot, like I'm experiencing, like there's a lot of things happening here. Like life here is very different, hey? Like my biggest concerns now are about recycling, you know, how to, you know, where do I put my recycling boxes? Where do I put this? I can't put that in the same bag. I can't put bottles in the same thing. Like it's like those are the worries you have. Like you worry about such, like, and I'm like, but no, guys. And today is Sunday, so that basically means there's probably in the whole city maybe less than 10 shops open. There are no grocery stores open. Everything is closed on Sundays. Everything.
Really?
Yeah, it's complete. So you can't be on some. Let me quickly run to Spar and buy 1 or 2 things. Nah.
Wow.
You know, Sundays are
African.
Yeah, Sunday is time for you and your family, and that's it. And everybody lives exactly that way. So Sundays you go up to the mountains, you take a bike, you go to the parks, you do everything but go shopping. So it's like one of those ways to learn and adjust. And you're like, if you don't buy something on Saturday because shops close at 5 on Saturday, if you don't buy anything then just wait for Monday because you're not going to get it.
Jeez, that must be quite an adjustment from, you know, the life you're used to here back in Africa, and knowing that you're able to obviously just on a Sunday decide, okay, maybe I'm going to do my grocery run today instead of, you know, Saturday I'm going to be social, during the week I'm working, and now you have to adjust and really taking Sunday for what it is, which is rest day, which we often also call healthcare day. So it sounds like you're being forced into it, which is great.
No, it's fun. I think just as much as I complain about it, I think I'm starting to really get used to it now. It's not as bad as it is when you think about it, because also I get time to spend with my little boy. But I spend time with him every day anyway. But like Sundays is when the family gets to run around and let him play with his bike, and we walk together, and so that's the nice part. But other than that, it's been a very interesting adjustment, to be honest, to say the least.
Yeah.
It's been very interesting.
Okay. I'm keen to hear more about that later on in the conversation. Sounds very, very interesting. You're going to be having a white Christmas.
Yes.
But I think just to kick us off formally, just because some people obviously have never been exposed to you that have joined the live, and some people will trickle in as it goes along. I will also be saving this on my IGTV for those people who are not available on, at this time slot. They can always come back to it later. Also going to upload it to YouTube. So yeah, I think to kick us off, who is Tshidi? Tell us more about Tshidi.
Yeah, man. I think one of the things that I always say to people is like, if it's an interview question, I'll answer it very differently. If you ask me who's Tshidi, I'll be like, I started my career at, Monash. I did like 6.5 years working there. But other than that, if I was just to maybe share a bit of information about who I am, I moved to South Africa, I think, in 2002 to study. It was squarely just to go study. And then from there, I started working immediately as soon as I finished university. But I started working throughout the university time. I used to work in a call center at Monash back then. And then from there, I literally just developed from I used to travel throughout the whole of Africa, well, most of Africa. I used to go to all these countries from Nigeria to go find students and all the other places. And then after a while, I got tired of flying around, because like all you do is just eat hotel food and restaurant food, and you're always tired, you're always on a flight, you're always going through customs. And then from there, I just moved into corporate. I started working for an agency for a year. And then after that, I think I got to work for Standard Bank for about 1.5 years in the grad space. And it was actually quite fun. I think also you joined Standard Bank around the same time when I was there, back in 19-something.
I'm not that old, no.
And then from there I moved to Investec, and this is where the journey for the Top of the Morning conversation started. In my Investec days, and I worked throughout literally my whole career. I've been in the talent acquisition space. Like it's been my daily bread. It's been everything that I do, and I can't see myself doing anything else. And then from Investec, I then went and worked at Ashburton Investment, which is part of First Rand Group. And I was there for a year before they moved us into forming another business area. So I've been at First Rand for about 4 years before finally moving over to Switzerland and trying to start a new life here and give my child a different lifestyle. But yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. That's where my journey has started, and that's where it's gone to so far.
Sure. I mean, I've known you from on varsity days, and you started the conversation, this part of, explaining who Tshidi is by introducing us to the fact that you moved here in 2002 or 6?
2002, yeah.
Yeah. So where were you coming from? Where were you born?
I was born in Botswana. And then I think we were the second group of people that the Botswana government literally sponsored to study at Monash. Before then, there wasn't really a group before us. There was one person, Bosha. There was one girl that was sponsored to study at Monash, and nobody knew who it was. Everybody thought it was a fly-by-night, one of those that you're never gonna. And then people started finding out like a bit later that, actually it's a really legit big university in Australia. So I was there for a period of time, and I think it was quite fun, because overall I spent about 8 years at Monash, because the first 3 years was studying, and then the other almost 9 years, and then the other 6.5 years was literally working for them full time as one of the guys that was doing recruitment of all students across, whether you think about Zimbabwe, and I had quite a lot of guys that I sort of brought into the campus. Some of them are still, some of my friends at the moment, and it's actually been fun. It's been good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. I think you've had such great exposure. I think being in a working for an academic institution and then moving on to obviously corporate and being in talent acquisition, I think you're well seasoned. I think you've
Yeah.
been exposed to so many different backgrounds. How did you decide? Did it find you? How did you decide to get into the space, or is it just something that you had a knack for?
You know, the funny thing is, I don't know many people in recruitment. I think only now in the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years, you've got people that will say, I want to become a recruiter. When I started in recruitment, it wasn't everybody that I met always did it via mistake. Like it was one of those things where it's like, I'm looking for a job, somebody falls into this thing. And that's exactly the same as me. Like if it wasn't for the fact that when I was still studying, I needed a bit of cash, I would have probably gone and done media and, because one of the things I've always wanted to do was to do script writing. I just wanted to, write scripts and talk about creating movies and all these things. So that was my journey from the time I left Botswana. And then I worked in the call center at Monash, and that exposed me to a different type of sale because it wasn't necessarily selling ideas. It was just convincing people that, coming to join Monash was the right thing to do. And I believed it, and I still do. I think some of the best, alumni that Monash has got, like you, for example, like they actually, it shaped them very differently. And I used to think about what universities were and what was very different about Monash and what it taught from a foundation point of view. And that was the one thing that actually just tied me to wanting to continue doing this selling of careers thing. So when I went and worked for DAV, the agency, it was a very short period of time because I got there and I was literally focusing on contracts. I was sitting down reading contracts and signing here and saying, no, we can't agree to this, we can't, negotiating with lawyers, and that got boring because that wasn't me. And then that's when I went to join Standard Bank. And then also once again, and what was very interesting with my journey was 6.5 years was at the university side, trying to bring students on. And I didn't get to see how corporates were looking at students at the time. So because I was the one that brought them in. And once they were in and they graduated, that wasn't really my problem. There was somebody else that took over until I went and worked for Standard Bank. And now it was like, oh, wait, so now I need to go get the same people that I brought into Monash to try and get them to work for Standard Bank. And that became a very different journey. And that's where I also realized the university is not doing enough to educate the guys about what careers exist and why, or what somebody should think about when they look up at a career. Because a lot of people would say, I want to do this, but your personality doesn't speak that career. Your circle of friends doesn't speak. Nothing that you want to do is actually that. Or somebody will say, I want to be a developer, and computers don't excite you. You don't sit at home and try and write code and do this. And that was one of the things that I started now saying, I need to start trying to do a better way of educating people, because I can't go to the universities and say to the career guys, you're doing a horrible job at educating your own staff. Your own students. Let me do it for you. It was now to say, okay, cool. I've got a platform and I've got a following. I'm going to give it out for free. So that somebody might read it, somebody might not see it. Somebody's going to share it with somebody else. And that's where the whole journey, grew into me jumping into this thing of, trying to help grow people's careers.
Wow, that's quite a journey. And
Yeah.
I think it's something that has found you. It's not necessarily that you went seeking. And I think that's always so incredible, especially when you heed the call, because I feel like we are all capable of changing the world in our little corners everywhere we are, which is part of why these interviews, these conversations happen, to say, listen, dear King Tshidi, I think in your space you are doing so great, and I think let's get onto the platform, let's chat about the waves that you're making. So that's a beautiful one. That is really amazing. And the fact that I think the journey before prepared you for the next level when you were still in academia, then moving on to the next part, corporate, and realizing, there's a bit of a disconnect.
Yeah.
And this is where Top of the Morning with Tshidi was born from. Wow.
Yeah, it was literally born from that. And to be honest, I used to think I'm gonna write a book about the mistakes people make in interviews, and that's the. I still think I'll probably write the book, because the top of the morning is
You
still
must.
building up towards that. I must. I just need a very good somebody to help me guide in how to put that book together. But the whole idea was I realized early on from my working at Standard Bank was there are some amazing graduates out there. There's people that you literally look at this person and you listen to their journey and what they've done, and you're like, you are absolutely going to change the world tomorrow. Like you look at these people and you're like, this guy's going to change the world. And then they get to the interview and the interview claps them. And you're like, but what happened? And then you realize, actually, it's not that the interview clapped them. It's just a few basic questions that were asked. These people didn't have the right tools to use them. And I think that's where I was like, this thing of waiting for people to get feedback, because also one of the things that was holding me back from a feedback point of view is, and this is something that recruiters will tell you, it is very difficult to give, like if you come to me and you say to me, listen, this is what I want. I want to know why I did not get the job. It is extremely difficult for a recruiter, and I'm going to be honest now because I'm now far, far away. I'm going to be dead honest. It is extremely impossible and very difficult for recruiters to be honest and tell you why you did not make it. The reason why that is the case is because when it comes to the recruitment space, if you say to somebody, you did not make it because we think you're lazy, or we did not make it because we don't think you've got your life planned out. One of the reasons you left your previous job was because, you were always late, or because I spoke to a friend of mine that worked with you in the same team, and that individual said you're just a very difficult person to deal with. They will never tell you that. Recruiters cannot tell you that because the labor law and the CCMA in South Africa is so strong and it's so hectic that I could just go and say, I feel like Tshidi was discriminating against me, hence I did not get the job. Or I said something when I was giving you feedback, I said something that just didn't sit well with you. And I was trying to really be honest with you to say, you rocked up and you were not dressed up. You didn't dress the part. You looked like you came to a friend's baby shower, So I can't give that feedback as a recruiter mainly because of that fear. The fear is the litigation and the process of going to CCMA to go prove above and beyond, because they don't have to prove anything. The candidate doesn't have to prove that they were really discriminated. You as the recruiter and the company have to prove that you did not discriminate. So that's where the problem comes in. And then what you then have is that you get these very high-level rejections that say, listen, man, there was a better candidate, or there was a much stronger candidate. That's the feedback we give because of the fear of, if somebody takes you to the CCMA, the process of having to go and prove above and beyond that you did not discriminate is too tedious. It's just way too much for a lot of recruiters. And a lot of them will just give you just a little high level to say, yeah, no, better person, better candidate. Because they don't want to get into that stage where they're like, yeah, no, listen, now I have to go defend everything at the CCMA. And I didn't say anything wrong about you as an individual. It was just how you came across in the interviews. So that is exactly what the problem comes in. And I see there's a question about social media.
Yes, big one. When I saw the question pop up, I'm like, this is a big one. So we all here, I mean, you on the other side, and it's so enlightening for us to have this conversation, speaking to someone who recruitment, but we hear often that nowadays a lot of employers go out and do research on social media. So what is it that when recruiters are looking at social media, what is it that you're looking for? And like Humuza is saying, does it not lead to bias based on what you see on social media?
So everything we do leads to bias. I can sit here and say, no, we're not biased. We are the most biased individuals. And that's why I always say to people, when you come to an interview, even your dress code should just delete the bias out of my mind. I should just see you as an individual to say, this person is coming to meet me here, and that's basically that. Now, here's the reason why employers nowadays, actually, it is happening now. It's not as widespread as a lot of people might think, where people are actually doing research on social media, but it is widespread. I mean, it's starting to pick up now. There's companies that already do that. They do a social media audit on candidates that we might employ. One of the reasons why that is the case is because if you look at in the last, I think 3 years, the Penny Sparrow story, where Penny Sparrow had already left the company that she was linked to on LinkedIn. But her comments went and put such a bad shadow on that company to a point where the company now had to go and defend and say, guys, look, please, wait. This person hasn't worked for us for more than 3 years. We don't know why they haven't updated. And that is why also you'll find that we're also in a time period where there's so much happening and people are so angry that they're willing to just throw everything out there. Like they throw things out there and they'll say the most racist things. They'll say the most, sexist things. They'll say the most horrible things on social media because they think they're hiding behind that. Now, the tools that currently exist, it doesn't matter whether I call myself Dreamcast Creations online. That tool is still able to link every single thing to me. So it doesn't matter whether you try and come up with a biased name, like a new name to say, so that I can hide my identity, I can tweet whatever I want. Unfortunately, that tool will literally pull every single thing that you have ever registered at any given time, that you've ever posted anything online. And in most cases, yes, companies are starting to do that because of the fear of the reputational issue that then comes after that costs the company millions of rands, because it now becomes one of those things where you've seen nowadays the cancel culture that's happening. I say something really horrible, somebody goes and tags F&B online, or they tag Standard Bank, or they tag whatever, and say, look at your employee being a horrible person. Now, the company that I work for has to now go defend that I'm no longer working for them. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of time and energy. So that's why a lot of companies they are now starting to really focus a lot more on social media information to try and understand what the people have posted, any disparaging thoughts about the company that they want to work for. They also do pick up on that. And then there's a second level of that, which is done at a director level. The higher you go, whether we're going to hire you as a CFO or whatever, your comments are extremely important because you've heard of there was a big case I think a few years ago at my former blue employer, where one of the big boss said something really I think either it was taken out of context or it was something that was really horrible online, and they lost their job. But that was mainly because at that level, everything you say, everything you tweet, everything you post, you should always just check it. You should just be careful what you post online. It's not normally about the fact that you party, and which is what sometimes people worry about. People worry about the fact that online people go check, how many parties you go to. That unfortunately is one of those things where luckily it's not something that they check. They check your comments. They check your anti-Semitism, your anti, gays, anti everything. If you hate people and you come in to represent a brand, that's what that social media tool searches for. It doesn't check how many parties. It doesn't check that you go and have a pool party every week. It's got nothing to, and it can't check on that because it's not searching for pictures, but it's searching for content that's written down. So things where you retweeted things, where you've typed things, and that's what it searches for. It can only search for that. Your pictures, it doesn't know how to search. So it'll just send me a thing like a report. And a report is very nice. It'll say no risk of this thing. This is what I've had a conversation with them. They say no risk of, any from an individual. This is what the information is. They come across as, stellar individual, and they've got like and they'll even give you their social media accounts to say this is that. And from a recruiter point of view, we don't really have the time to go dig ourselves to see what pictures you've got. Like that's why I'm saying the fear of social media being checked. It's based on your content that you type. It's not based on, you know, the type of pictures that you post. You could post whatever, but it's not based on the pictures that you're posting. It is the content written down.
So I could put news up and just have a caption that's like about rainbows and sunshine and and have news up.
Yes, and you could win. I mean it. Unless if there's obviously one of those where there's now comments linked to the news, then that's a different conversation. But if there's no comments that are saying, "Ooh, this person is doing this," then you're easygoing. It's all good. You're not going to be in trouble. And I think a lot of people say, "But my account is private." Remember, the social media scraping tools, as much as your account is private, think about you, let's say maybe you're sitting with one of your girls and you talk about, oh yeah, maybe we should go to Balito for the weekend, right? You're speaking about it high level, Balito for the weekend, and 2 days later or like 2 hours later, you try and go on CNN and there's specials for Balito and you're like, hi man, but I haven't searched anything for Balito. My accounts are private. Everything is private. There's nothing out there that says I wanted to go to Balito. I was just discussing it. Our phones are literally recording every single thing. And they say the fact that we're not paying for Google and for YouTube and for this, it means we are the product they're selling. So we're not, so as much as, and what happens is at that stage where the company shares Balito, it doesn't yet know who you are. It just knows you by your internet identity. And the moment you click on it, then they then scrape your details. It doesn't matter how private your account is. So that's why I'm saying it is the content that people type online that is extremely important.
Sure, this is very interesting. And a lot of it, I think, when we think social media or what we've been socialized into thinking when it comes to, you know, your job search and all of that, it comes from a very negative perspective a lot of the time. But other ways, as somebody who is on the job market, who's job seeking and wants to use social media in a positive light.
There's actually quite a lot of ways. I think one of the things that we tend to forget is everybody is some form of subject matter expert in something, you know, and I think if you looked at my career, yes, I could say maybe I've got 15 years experience in recruitment, but there's people that have got between 30 and 25 and whatever. They've got so many years of experience in that. But none of them are sharing the content online. So I always say to, like some of the guys, there are guys that are out there that say, you know, I'm a lawyer and I can't just speak about this. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you reading some of these legal opinions out there and posting one or two things online to just say, just be careful of the following, because you are the person that is, well, you know what you're talking about in that particular space. It's the same as if you look at bankers. Bankers, they always say the information you share online based on phase regulations and rules should always be one where it's not considered to be advised to a point where it could actually make somebody make a bad mistake. However, you could actually always caution towards certain things. It's the same as how your friends will always come to you and say, but you're a banker. Tell me, should I buy the Sasol shares? And you're like, but I can't, I'm not at liberty to advise you about the Sasol shares. But you can go and say, when you're buying shares, these are some of the top 3 things you need to consider. You understand? So it's one of those things where I think when you're looking for a job as an individual, number one, your content should be up to date. I mean, if you look at, there's people out there that will have a CV that is not even close to being up to date. Like this CV was written when they were 25, and it's still at the top there. It still says they're 25 years old, but they were born in 1982, right? And then they come to the interview. Sometimes you're like, okay, I'm gonna forgive them for this number. They come for the interview and they're like, I pay a lot of attention to detail. And you're like, really? And they're like, yeah, no. Lots of attention to detail. I am the man. Cool. How old are you? I'm 38. How old does your CV say you are? 25. Okay. So you pay attention to detail. You understand? So it's one of those small things that trip you up as a candidate that just says, just make sure that you always give it to somebody else. Because I always say, there's nothing wrong with taking a copy of your CV and handing it over to a friend. It's simple. hand it to a friend and say, hey, listen, please check this, check for mistakes, check for whatever. And I'm also always assuming that your friends love you enough to tell you if your CV sucks. And if your friends don't love you that much, you should find new friends. It's that simple. If your friends can honestly be honest with you and say, listen, hey, your CV comrade is it's just not cutting it, then find new friends because they're not there for you. So that's what I would say. If you're looking for a job, especially now, when it's a pandemic, there are so many people that have lost jobs, and those are highly qualified individuals. That means the market is flooded with all these talented individuals that have got far better skills than you. So the best thing that you can do is read as much as you can, learn as much as you can, do enough research, and make sure that all your content on all social media is up to date. All social media, including, because sometimes what we do is we'll go search for a skill and we'll search for it on LinkedIn. But then because we don't have your contact details, we'll then go into Career Junction to check for your contact details. And what's very nice about that is Career Junction normally, because we will then have access to that, we then able to get your details and call you back. So if, for example, you've got a PNet, Career Junction, Careers24, LinkedIn, make sure that at least all 4 of them have got information that's up to date. You cannot have information up to date on one side, because I'm going to then go, if I'm a company and I'm only using PNet and you've got your details on PNet, and the number that you had a stalker and you ran away from your stalker, so you changed numbers, but you haven't updated that number on PNet. That means I'm not going to be able to get hold of you. Or you used to have a Hotmail email account and it wasn't hot anymore. You moved to Gmail, but you forgot to update Hotmail to Gmail. Also, once again, I won't be able to get hold of you. So it's about being able to say, where am I accessible? Where can people find me? And then make it that simple.
Sure. I've never thought about that. Just updating across all platforms, because often you just think, if you are at a certain point in your career, junior, maybe still starting out, you would naturally sign up on your Career Junctions and PNets, but over time you kind of forget about them and never really ever go back to them. So thank you for that. That is golden.
Yeah, no, we still use them. I think they still have, when it comes to people's contact details, they probably are the best ones to have from a contact detail point of view. And as much as we don't speak about it freely out there in the market, we still go to them to say, okay, cool. I know I saw Benjamin's details. I saw his CV on this, but I can't remember where. I will normally go directly into Career Junction or PNet, check for that details there. And in most times I'm lucky. I'm able to then call this person and say, hey, listen, come, let's have a chat. So update especially when you're looking for a job. When you're not looking for a job, it's fine. You can leave it as is. But when you're looking for a job, update it on all your platforms that you know you've got access to.
Okay. And I know LinkedIn has become more and more popular as a tool that recruiters use.
It's a lot more popular because of the usability part of it. I mean, when you're a recruiter and you're using LinkedIn, I think it's the one thing that has become a lot more popular. But what also people don't realize is, for example, LinkedIn, even when I was back in South Africa, I used LinkedIn mostly if I was searching for people in Durban, Cape Town, and Johannesburg. But if I was searching for people in Limpopo, Polokwane, or I'm talking about the Northwest or all the other places, I went to Career Junction. Because you will not find the people that you're looking for on LinkedIn from some of those areas, like Upington. Upington, you can check now, there's probably like less than 1,000 people that are living in Upington. Or it's people that used to live in Upington and moved over to Joburg or one of the areas. So it's the popular one for the main metros. But when we talk about the smaller areas, then we go into your Career Junction and your PNets, and it's basically the same type of information that's available readily online.
Okay. I guess which is why it's important then to make sure that consistently across all different platforms you are up to date.
Yes. Just make sure you're up to date. And don't be an egg as well. Like I always say, don't be an egg on LinkedIn. And an egg, I can remember when Twitter came out, they used to not necessarily give you the bird. If you didn't have a picture, they gave you the egg. to show people that you haven't yet evolved. Yeah, don't be that person that's got a LinkedIn account and you don't have a picture. It's easy to take a picture for LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest thing you'll ever do. I always say to people, turn at an angle, ask a friend to take a picture, and you sort it. Like it's that simple. Like an angle, take a picture, you sort it with a normal smartphone, and just it doesn't have to be the most expensive one. And then you put your picture on LinkedIn and you sort it. So don't be that person, because to be honest, and I'm going to be honest, I've got roughly about almost 27,000 followers on LinkedIn. I accept probably 95% of the people that either follow me or that send me friend requests, but I don't accept people that are eggs. If you don't have any content on your LinkedIn, I always think that you are there to be a fraud. Like you're there to try and snoop. You're finding things that are necessary, it's one of those things. And I see there's a question about why do you need a picture?
Which I guess, yeah.
You know what? Pictures are simple. Like there is something about, and it goes back to COVID right now. I think if you look at the times of COVID and the interviews that people are having, more and more people want to have a video conference call than to have a blank screen where it's just a telephone. Mainly because as human beings, we connect as we speak to each other. Like if, for example, let's say I put a cover here and you couldn't see my eyes and I couldn't see your eyes, the likelihood of us connecting and being able to have this conversation and being able to read each other's cues becomes very less. So the picture normally is just to welcome people into your space, to say, listen, this is who I am and welcome to my world. And that is the only reason why people normally need that on LinkedIn. And I've since also learned that, for example, where I am right now in Switzerland, your CV has to have a picture. When I was in South Africa, I was preaching, do not put pictures on your CV, because I used to say, if you look like somebody's ex, they might not hire you because you remind them of, But now I'm here, and it's like you always have to have a picture on every single thing that you send out. So those are some of the things that it's the nuances. When it comes to LinkedIn, LinkedIn is just, it's like you being at a party, but you have a box on your face and nobody can see your face. Like, then you might as well not be at that party. But if you want people to then approach you, you take off the box, you put it aside, or you take off your biker helmet, you put it aside, and you engage with people. And that's what LinkedIn is. It's exactly that. Just to say, hello, my people, let's connect. This is who I am. And then you're sorted.
Which is, I mean, if you think about it outside of just the marketplace, the job marketplace, if you think about it as human beings, that is definitely something that helps you connect to the next person. It could be like a personal relationship. For as long as you're just liaising with someone here over the phone without actually having this screen time, because I mean, we're in COVID now, it's not like you can easily just go and meet someone. It makes it a lot harder. So there's things like that. There's language that it always helps to establish relationships because it's a connecting point. So when I see you and I can read your body language, it makes it so much more different. Like, fine, a picture, you can't read body language from a picture, but I'm speaking in context of, when you're having those Zoom meetings and calls and all of that. So I definitely understand why you would not want to be seeing an egg as a recruiter. It makes it very impersonal. It makes it very, very impersonal.
And also, I always say to people, it's the same as if you look at, there's programs even in South African prisons where you could write letters to inmates, right? And you wonder why not many people are doing that. Not many people write letters to inmates because there's no connection between them and that individual. Like you're not going to just randomly tomorrow say, you know what, I'm going to write 50 letters to 50 inmates that are in Mampuru prison. For what? You connected with them how? So that's why I always say, like, sometimes it's as basic as just the picture is the easiest way into somebody's connection and just saying, this and that. Like there's people that, you meet them the first time and you're like, I'm not sure I'll be friends with this person. But then they blow you away just by conversations and you're like, you know what, this person is all easygoing. But then there's people that you also meet and you're like, yeah, no, this one, it's not like, and you try everything in your heart to try and make it work and it's just chilling. It's not happening. You're not connecting with that person. it is the thing that says, as human beings, we want to connect and we want to know what, if you're in pain, I want to see your pain so that I can try and find a way to take it away. And the same thing as your LinkedIn, the same thing as your video conferences. And it's the same thing that I always say to people is, if you're going to go to an interview, like it's the same as right now, my lights are not on because I figured I'll sit by the window so that light comes in. There's nothing wrong with having a video conference call and you're sitting like this and literally you just let light in and you have conversations and life is good. And that's the same thing for interviews. Just do that for yourself, and like it takes away all the pains of having to think about putting lights and just window, sit next to it, face it, Bob's your uncle.
Good to go. There's an interesting point when we were talking about like pictures. So BN2G2 was asking, are we not moving away? Because you were making a point about on your CV having a picture on there. And in fact, earlier in the conversation, you were also saying, have your friends review your CV and let them be honest with you. But I was even thinking about that. I'm like, we all have different ways of doing things. And we've all been taught, especially if, let's say, my friends are not necessarily, most are not in recruitment. So I'll go to 3 different people. They'll all have different perspectives. My current CV now has a picture. Before, I never had a picture. But I'm pretty sure if I had to pass on my CV to my friends, they're going to be like, girl, why do you have your picture on there? Yeah. So that does not take away, because what BN2G2 was saying is that, is it not taking away from your skills and competencies? Shouldn't they be speaking for you instead of having that picture there? And even for me, what I've thought sometimes is, you're going to sit there looking like your picture's going to be beautiful. They'll think, oh, this one might just be beauty without brains, like she's just about looking pretty. So
I think, to be honest, we're living in a very biased and a very unfair world. I'm not going to lie. I think we live in a world where there's certain things that play a different role. So I think the best way I can answer BN2G2, that's Benjamin. Yeah. Yeah, that's Benjamin Gillis. So the best way I can answer that is, we should always remember that there's 2 platforms. There's platform number 1, which is what they call social media platform. And that's why they put that platform in LinkedIn. They put it on a social media platform. And when it comes to social media, it's people that are socialized with, people that I choose to put in my space. That's why, from a social media point of view, it is okay to actually just, say, if somebody doesn't have a picture, like, why am I socializing and networking with somebody that I can't see? Because it's my social media space. When it comes to, and that's why when I used to speak about CVs, I used to say, don't put a picture unless the company requests it. Whereas when it comes to a CV, now that's a professional conversation. That's where we're now talking about, now we just literally only looking at, the people that are saying they've applied or we're reaching out to. That one, whether they don't have a picture on their CV or they do have a picture on their CV, it doesn't change the price of bread. It's very important that we distinguish between the 2. As much as LinkedIn is considered to be a professional platform, it is a professional social media platform. Mm-hmm. So a social media platform basically means I want people in my social media that I resonate with. And it's the same as like with social media. With work, you can come and work for us and you'll work with us. I can't delete you from my life, right? Whereas on LinkedIn, if you piss me off, I can delete you. Or you have a side comment that just doesn't end well with me, I delete you. It is a social media. Yes, it's a professional platform, but it's a social media platform. And that is why it's very important that when it comes to your LinkedIn, which is your social media platform, you actually normally have that. And remember, one of the reasons why it's also very important is because with internet issues where you've got bots, because there's companies right now that have got bots that are doing things, that are tweeting on people's behalf. And a lot of those bots don't even have pictures. I avoid things that do not have pictures because of the fear of the fact that I could have a conversation with a bot and think that I'm having a conversation with a human being. And little do I know that this bot is literally just collecting information from all my platforms that I've got. That's why we always say simplify things, because yes, they will move to a point where they put pictures for all the bots, but just simplify. Have a picture, because then I will welcome you into my world in the social media platform of professionals, not necessarily without that. But on your other side, depending on the type of work that you want to do, depending on where you want to go, it is still fantastic to sometimes have a picture on your CV. Because like if you look at you, for example, you're in a space where you're speaking about acquisition banking. You know, it's about people want to trust you before they meet you. And as much as we would like to say, no, trust me for the experience I've got, unfortunately, people still want to judge you up front. They want to still judge you first and say, hi, man, let me meet her anyway. But so it's that world that we live in where it says people always judge you, regardless of what you think. So that's why it's very important that we actually have pictures in the right platforms and friends that can check out your CV.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be the friend who's going to check out my CV once I'm ready to get on the job market. I'm not now, but I'm saying you're going to be that friend.
Yes, I do that for quite a number of my friends, and I think a lot of them will tell you I'm one of those people that if I have the capacity to do it, I will definitely do it. And I normally, because I've got that YouTube video called Top of the Morning with Tshidi, and what I've done is, like, I've also looked for tools that are free for people, because I realized recently, and it's a new thing, I've realized recently there's a lot of companies or a lot of individuals that are charging people to create CVs for them. And then you realize they actually use the same tools that are freely available to the same candidates. So that's why I said to guys, like, I did a video about a tool called Canva, canva.com. Simple. You literally go in there, replace the jargon that's written there with your own information. And it is, you don't need to be a techie to be able to do that. And when the CV comes out, like, it looks fantastic. You know, it looks amazing. So that's why I was like, you know what, let me also share some of that information with people so that, you know, those that want to use it, they can use it. Those that don't want to use it, you know, we'll go back to the basics of using a normal old Word document. But Canva is available for just about everybody.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You spoke about, when you said you started speaking about bots and all of that, like robots and stuff that are doing all those things online, it triggered my mind now to say, okay, we are in the time, the pandemic, the world has shifted, whether we like to agree with it or not. I think there's been a fundamental shift in terms of how we do things.
Yeah.
Now, just in terms of the marketplace, like, how do we reposition ourselves or do things differently to make sure that in this new world that we find ourselves in, we are not letting it pass us by?
Yeah. I think, so one of the things that I've learned recently is we generally don't upskill ourselves enough in everything that we do. I think we normally wait for the company to say, go do this course about personal management, or go do this course about this, and we don't upskill ourselves enough. If we have the means, and I always say if we have the means, because not everybody can afford to pay, you know, $300 a month for LinkedIn learning, for example, or for them to be able to buy some courses on Udemy or Show Academy or some of those platforms. If you have the means and you have a bit of extra money, what's very nice nowadays is all you can do is look at the skill that you want to get into. Like, if you want to go into learning about robotics and this and that, because it's a new thing that's coming up, or your job now requires you to learn how to automate things, before calling the company and asking them to do that, because a lot of companies are going to start holding on to their money, just check online where some of these things are available, because they now call it, I think Google calls it micro learning, where you just do small, instead of a 3-year bachelor's degree, you're doing smaller iterations of courses. And that's very nice also for a lot of people to say, the pandemic is now forcing us to be better than what we were 6 months ago or a year ago. Even in the talent acquisition space. I mean, if you go into my profile, I've done probably maybe 10, 15 courses in the last 3 months, because and all of them are just an hour. It's just an hour or an hour and a half where I sit, and you can actually even play them at a 1.5 times speed, so that, you know, it's not this slow thing. You can just, and you're listening, you're putting your notes on the side. I'm doing that because I also don't want to sit here and say, oh, I'm just chilling, and, you know, the company that I work for will then keep on paying for my studies. Like, that's not That's not happening anymore. So micro-learning is very fundamental for a lot of people, especially the guys that are looking for jobs or change of careers. If you cannot do those free courses or those small courses or buy 1 or 2 courses, your peers that have got access to that in some other companies are going to beat you at it. And then you also then have companies, for example, my previous employer, First Friend, literally paid for the whole of the employees to use LinkedIn, Udemy. And what was very sad was to see that it was still underutilized. I don't know if it's being mostly utilized now, but it was still underutilized by a lot of people. Like, it's there, free, available, but not enough people are going online and learning about these things. So you are at a time where you cannot be comfortable with the skill that you had last year. You have to be comfortable with the skills that you're going to learn in the future, because if you don't, you're in trouble, to be honest. You are going to be in so much trouble.
Sure. Thank you for that. I think we all needed that level of awareness. I've got yes here. Oh my God. This is okay. There was a comment earlier. Thank you for what you've just shared there, because I think it's very important that we continuously, I think, reinvent ourselves and not get too comfortable, because change is the only constant that we know. I mean, we've known that forever. So, so Humuza asked about job hopping.
Yeah.
So one of the pros about that is that you obviously get to ramp up your income.
Yes.
What are you as a recruiter, when you come across a potential candidate, those sort of things, what are you looking out for? If somebody's been job hopping for, the last year, they've changed jobs 3 times, what does it reflect? Do you omit some of those things on your CV? What does that look like?
So you can't really omit it. I always say to people, job hopping it's not bad if you can explain it. It's horrible if you can't explain it. Because what normally happens with a lot of people from a job hopping point of view is that, you keep on hopping to ramp up your salary because, your employers are not necessarily growing that. From a recruiter point of view, we freak out. Because remember, as a recruiter, I have to put in hours and hours in screening out people. Like, I have to screen to say, these are the 5 candidates I want the business to meet. Some of them I have to call them on the phone first before I put them in front of the line manager. There's no recruiter out there that wants to place you today and knowing that in 6 months, I have to replace you again. I'd rather go replace a role where somebody was there for 3 years, because then I feel like you're giving me a break to continue learning other things. But if I replace you today and then 6 months later I replace another person 6 months later, it works against the recruiter. And that's the part that a lot of people don't realize from a recruitment point of view. When we speak in recruitment about quality of hire is based on how well the person adds value to the company and for the time frame. And then some of us, for example, I would have a team of recruiters. I measure them on that. I measure them on the people that they've placed in the last 12 months, how many of them have stayed and how many of them have not stayed. Because if you hire people and every 6 months they leave, you're a bad performer in the recruitment world. So, and that's the part that a lot of people don't realize is the fact that for the recruiter, it's a bad thing to keep on losing people. So job hopping, yes, for you, it might be a benefit to you, but it's a huge disadvantage to the recruiter because, you're taking away that person's bonus every time you keep on hopping because, there's a likelihood now where we're like, oh, okay, so you keep on hiring these people and every 6 months they're going, are you just putting bums on seats? So that means you're not doing proper quality control. You're not checking if the people are actually the right people. So it starts making you realize that as much as it's a benefit to one person, it is a huge disadvantage to the person that brought you on board. But also at the same time, I always say, yes, if you job hop or if you decide to change jobs, have a proper concrete explanation that does not say, I wanted more money. Because the moment you say that to me, it says, I'm not going to hire you because if somebody comes with a bit more money, you're going to run again. So you understand. So it's one of those things where you need to explain. And when you say, I changed jobs because I wanted to grow, in 6 months, you can't say you want to grow in 6 months, comrade. Like 6 months is not long enough for you to have even understood. We're still paying school fees in 6 months, which basically means in those 6 months, we're literally still paying for you to learn about what our company does. So you can't now tell me you wanted to change because you wanted to go grow. So that's why I'm saying there's two things that you need to look at it. Number one is it's bad for a recruiter if people keep on changing jobs, especially the people that they're brought in, because from a quality of hire point of view, you've taken that bonus out of that person's pocket. Secondly, if you can't explain it, then a lot of recruiters are not going to be able to take you on board. So that's what job hopping is in the simplest terms.
So now, realistically speaking, how authentic can I be for, my reason for maybe leaving the last role? I may have stayed there for 6 months and I realized like I'm not a fit. I'm not a fit in the culture. Like Ben is even touching on here to say, you walk into an organization, yes, you're in the interview and you were told what the role is and whatever, and then you walk into an organization and realize, number one, I'm not a fit, or number two, this role actually isn't what I thought it would be. So how honest can you be with a recruiter to say, this is why I left, I was not a fit?
That's the best honest thing you can ever tell a recruiter. So just to tell you a quick story. So 2017, November, I left First Range to go join one of the auditing firms. I resigned from the auditing firm in the second week of being there because the culture wasn't right. I rocked up and I was like, nah, man, this is not, it's not, because I came from an environment where, Investec, you question everything. Somebody can't come to you and say, this is what needs to happen. And you say, okay, cool. Investec, for example, or banking normally says, if it doesn't make sense in your head, you need to ask questions to say, but why should I do that? So I was there for literally, to be honest, I was there for 3 weeks maximum.
Wow.
I had resigned from one company and moved to another company, was there for 3 weeks and came back to my previous employer. And that's actually something where I could easily explain it to my then boss to say to him, listen, bruh, I left because this is what I was looking for. This is what the role was talking about. This is what they sold me. I got there. It was very different because of 1, 2, 3. I was able to explain it for myself to say, when you speak about the culture not fitting, what is it about the culture that didn't fit well? And for me, what didn't fit well was, it was one of those environments where if a partner says jump, you just jump. You don't question why I'm jumping. You just jump. You'll find out with your friends when you reach the floor why you were jumping, and you're like, and then I was like, I'm too loud to do that. I'm just one of those people that doesn't know how to just jump. I want to understand why something is happening. The process were taking too long. And then I was like, no, I can't do this. So it's easier that way for me to explain it to a recruiter to say, listen, I left company X because of this reason. And when I didn't fit from a culture point of view, and be able to identify the specific things on the culture that did not gel well with your culture. Because then once you do that, then recruiters understand. Like, we're all humans. We all know like these things. Like, and there are times when you want to tell me that your boss is toxic, but you don't want to say that your boss is toxic. I can pick up as a recruiter. I'll push you a bit to see what other information you want to share. That's not necessarily saying this person is toxic. And normally what I would do, that's just me anyway, personally, if I feel like where you came from as an environment was so bad that it actually almost broke you as an individual, when I go explain to the line manager, I will make sure that they don't ask you that question. I will then say, I will explain to them to say, okay, they're obviously going to give you a high level view of this, why they left the previous employer. But the reality is the line manager was this person, they did this, they did that, they did. So I then become your spokesperson on your behalf. I rock up and I say, this is why, yes, the answer about why they've left might not sound as amazing, but just know this is the reasons. And when they get there, the line manager focuses on your abilities and your capabilities and other things. And yes, they might just jump into that question, but even if you give them a high level, they have the real content. So that's what I used to do, because I used to pick up when people have been through hell in their previous employer. And I'm like, yeah.
Sorry to pause you. Instagram is a mini. It gives us limit of an hour. So I'm just afraid that it will cut us off right now. So I'm going to just go off, end this one, save it on my IGTV. Priscilla, I saw that you joined late, and for the rest of the people who didn't hear that, I'll be saving this. I'm going to save this on my page, and then we'll just reconnect again in the next minute. So very good conversation, lots of comments and questions that are coming through. I think it's a good one. So let's come back shortly.
All right, cool.
Sure.